Cece and Didi don't get along. Can't even agree on this fucking song. Ooh, bitch. Why are we friends?
Hello, and welcome back to our show. I actually just wanted to start out very slowly because someone told me from the last episode that I was really loud and I hurt their eardrums the first moment they started listening to it
It wasn't me, I swear.
with my hello. So I want to be very I just want to ease you into it. So hello, we're back with our show. This is episode 24, I believe. We have a nice light rain outside. It's nice and drizzly and calming. So I hope that the calming effect of the rain and maybe my lighter voice will soothe you so that you don't get triggered again. Um, but all in fairness, I do actually want to apologize for that last episode. It was meant to be a really fun exercise in imagination and improv, and we ended up in someone's asshole. And um, I played this game with children, like not the asshole part, but just as a bedtime story, to exercise imagination and things like that. And it was really fun. But I just also wanted to explain that my job on this show is to take the elevated conversations that Cece provides and bring it down into the slick poo gutter. So I think I did my job, but also if you skip that episode, I completely understand. That was not my intention. I think it was actually a really good idea that turned into shit, quite literally.
Well,
Um,
it had its moments.
it had its shitty moments. But now we're here, and for us, it's Monday or Smonday. It feels like sort of a Sunday, Monday sort of day, like just a weird, for some of us people who you might not experience that, Cease, but some of us didn't know it was like 5 o'clock.
Daylight savings.
Yeah, I guess I should blame it on that. But yeah, this is a show all about bitches, so I wanted to be a bitch.
Well, you're doing a great job.
So what do we have for us today? We are talking about historical bitches today.
Yeah.
So kind of explain the premise so that everybody sort of knows what kind of page we're on.
It's Women's History Month, for
Mm.
those of you who didn't know that.
With
Um,
International Women's Day having been.
Last week,
Yeah. How did you celebrate that?
I got my period that day.
That is perfect.
I mean, I guess that like maybe it wasn't celebratory, but
You should celebrate that you are still fertile.
should I though?
Celebrate that you're a woman.
I feel like there are better ways.
I'm trying to
I know what you're trying to do, okay?
draw a silver bloody lining.
Please don't. How did you celebrate?
I celebrated by not cleaning my kitchen. It was a total mess.
Mhm.
And I refused to make dinner. So we ordered out. And I think I probably had sex. I celebrated my vagina.
So anyway, being that it is international, no, sorry, it was International Women's Day. It's Women's History Month. We wanted to celebrate in a way that was really in keeping with the ethos of this podcast and hold space. Are we holding space
That might be right.
for bitches?
This is a space for bitches, all kinds of bitches.
Basically, we just asked around to some people, not necessarily who we like, but we know them. And we asked them who their favorite historical bitches
Mm-hmm.
are.
I have to say, though, one of my favorite responses on our Instagram was I think she's one of your friends. She said her favorite historical bitch is herself.
I think I missed that one.
Yeah. So I mean, we have badass bitches who get shit done. We have bitches. We also have basic bitches, who are just, I don't think any basic bitches really made it on the list because they're not really worth mentioning anyways. They're just so basic.
Right? Who cares? Who gives a shit?
True.
Fuck them. So let's just dive right in. Who were these bitches and why are they considered bitches? We're really, it's subjective, but we're gonna try. Do you who's your favorite historical bitch?
Well, I know that you have Grace O'Malley on your list already. I think she's probably one of my favorites just because I loved how it said that she kind of just dumped her second husband and took his castle and made it her own. Her like was called like Hen's Castle or something. And she included her children in her pirating. And I just find that really interesting. I found her whole story interesting. So I think she was probably one of my favorites, but she isn't the most fascinating to me. I think the most fascinating bitch, I would probably just say is just a straight up cold hearted bitch, was Elizabeth Bathory because she tortured her victims in such a way. There was body dismemberment using scissors and sticking like hot iron spikes up victims' vaginas and forcing them to cut and cook their own flesh and stitching their
What?
lip tongue together. Strangling a victim with a Turkish silk scarf was probably her least bloody form of torture. She forced victims to sit and bathe on spikes while pressing spikes into the back and breasts of their victims. And she'd cover a naked victim in honey and leave them outside to be bitten by various insects. Oh, and she
Oh,
used her
good, there's
own
more.
she used her own teeth to lacerate the victim's genitals.
So she bit their junk.
Yeah. And of course, we all know that she also bathed in virgin blood. Yeah. So I would say that she's one of the cold hardest bitches I can think of. And that would just, she doesn't really compare to Grace O'Malley because Grace O'Malley did some pretty fucking cool things in her pirating career. And she actually got to live out her life in her castle. I mean, she kind of had it all, so those, I guess those are two of my favorite, but they're completely different stories. And one of them is a total bitch who I never would have wanted to ever meet in my entire life, and the other one is somebody who's worth looking up to, maybe for what she did. I don't know, but
And piracy. I mean,
yeah, exactly, usually a man's career. But
right? Well, I mean, we had a couple other lady pirates.
who was the other lady pirate? I forget her name here now.
Well, there was Anne Bonny and
Yeah,
Mary Reed. I don't know which,
it's really cool that they took their place in piracy.
right? Exactly. You
So
know?
yeah. So who is your favorite on the list or off the list that you can think of?
Okay, so one who definitely is on my list is Ludmila Pavlichenko. So she was a sniper in the Red Army when the Nazis invaded during World War II. She was Ukrainian, though, I believe. And she was credited in the span of about a year, she was credited with 309 confirmed kills. Uh,
Wow, that's cool.
yeah, so she was definitely the most successful female sniper ever. And she was referred to as Lady Death. So she was definitely not to be trifled with. Definition of a bad bitch.
That's pretty cool. That reminds me of, just a side note here, in the same time frame, there was what was they called the night witches. It was because of the whooshing noises their wooden planes made, but they were comprised of around 16,000 women, and they went on approximately 30,000 missions. They petitioned Stalin to let them form an all-female fighting squadron. So they're sort of in that same camp with your favorite there. So they would be a bunch of badass bitches too. So yeah, fighting women.
My other favorite, who's someone I've, kind of, well, maybe admired is not the right word. Well, maybe it is. But anyway, someone else who is definitely on my list, who I added to our list, is Asada Shakur.
Mhm.
And I remember reading her autobiography when I was in middle school, I think. And it was pretty eye-opening on a lot of different levels. Um, Most people know her now because she's a fugitive in Cuba, where she sought political asylum, and she's been there since the late 70s. No, sorry, the 80s. She broke out of prison in 1979, or was broken out of prison in 1979. She was a member of the Black Liberation Army, and she
Mhm.
ended up being convicted of murdering a state trooper, which my understanding is she did not murder anyone. The aftermath of this shootout and her treatment while she was in prison, is she talks about that extensively in her autobiography, and she just sort of talks about the way she was treated while in custody, and before her conviction and after. And yeah, anyway, she just like got broken out of prison and was on the run as a fugitive for years, and is still wanted to this day by the FBI. I think there's a $2 million reward for her apprehension. And that's part of the reason there's still some tension uh, between Cuba and the United States, because Cuba has said that they will never give up Asada. That's pretty badass. But what were some other highlights for you? Or who were some other highlights for
Um,
you?
I mean, this is definitely into the pop culture zone, but I noticed that Yoko Ono was on the list.
Yep.
And I know that when you hear Yoko Ono, there's this huge, I mean, people have an opinion. People that know who that is and have an opinion.
Yeah.
They either are, fuck her for ruining the greatest band on earth, which that is very debatable. One,
Highly.
because John Lennon himself was kind of a prick. She definitely, like, in some people's camp, she would definitely be a bitch, like a band ruining bitch, and other people have more of an understanding, I guess, of what she's doing. I don't know. I just find her interesting. I don't like her music, but I don't blame any of that. I'm not really a huge Beatles fanatic, so I wouldn't have said that she was this person who disrupted a perfect
I'm sorry. Like, if they were such a great, and I mean, as if one person coming in could have such an impact, when there are record executives, there are
yeah,
people's agents, there are the individuals
yeah.
themselves. Like, there's all this stuff.
Uh,
There are all kinds of people interfering with
they're
people's
they're
art.
they're putting a lot of shit on one woman when come on. John Lennon was doing some pretty stupid, shitty things. So,
Well, yeah, and I'm sorry, she survived in Tokyo through World War II and the firebombing of that happened in 1945. So, which was actually the anniversary was just on March 9th.
mhm.
So, like, they were probably lucky to have her around.
On a side note, though, if you are a girlfriend with a man in a band, just fucking don't get involved. Also, just, you know, because you don't need that kind of man drama. They're just gonna, if they're not gonna try to fuck you, then they're gonna try to blame you, and just don't be involved in their stupid little band. Don't do that.
Right? And it was Paul McCartney's fault that she even met John Lennon. So,
Right. And nobody blames him.
exactly. I blame him for a lot of things.
Was there anybody else that stood out in this list for you?
So many.
I know it's hard to, well, we can just,
Go down the list. How about Hedy Lamarr?
she was a scientist, wasn't she?
Well,
And
an inventor. She wasn't like she didn't have any formal
right,
schooling or anything like that. And she
that's what
was, I mean, she was a movie star.
a movie star, but that's what makes it so amazing is that she had a foot in both worlds, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, she was the one because apparently she dated Howard Hughes for a little while. And she was the one who gave him the idea for a more aerodynamic airplane design based on birds and fish that were very fast. Didn't save him from pissing in jars and holding on to them for months at a time, but they only dated for a brief while.
But you don't do that? You don't piss in jars? But yeah, there's a lot of bitches out there, in however definition you want.
Yeah, like Margaret Thatcher. I mean, she was a bitch who got stuff done, but she was also just a bitch. Like, not no bad, no boss, just bitch.
I guess there's also that. There's badass bitches, there's boss bitches, not really knowing how to categorize everything. Okay, how about Ginsburg? I mean, I don't think she's even on the list.
Oh, yeah. So I was like, Helen Ginsburg isn't a woman. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, yes.
Yeah,
Right. Definitely not on the right topic. Yeah, no, she didn't make the list. I think she was too obvious
right.
for people.
But since we're mentioning political badass bitches, she would definitely be there as well.
Refusing to die is pretty massive bitch energy.
You know, that's true. And Maggie Smith is definitely, and I really don't want to jinx anything because I fucking love Maggie Smith, but she kind of seems immortal at this point. Is she still working? I'm not sure, but she's
Probably.
been working for fucking ever. And the refusing to die bitch, she's definitely going to be on that list. I think another one that popped out at me, um, you know, okay, I don't know who added Betty White.
That was my mom.
Okay. The funny thing is, and everybody will say, Betty White is we'd say a badass boss bitch because she did everything. She started so many wonderful things. The funny thing is that I actually have a story about her. My mom did caretaking for a woman up until she was in her 90s when she passed. And she had met Betty White on a cruise ship. And I believe it was in the 80s. When my mom told her that I loved Betty White and that I have been rewatching all the Golden Girls episodes, this old lady scoffed and she said, I don't know about all the other Golden Girls, but Betty White was one bitch. When I met her on the cruise, she was so bitchy to me. And I just completely stopped. I was just like, Betty White. I mean, there's a million reasons why she could have been a bitch to this woman. I don't know the circumstances, but I thought the story was funny because she still, as an old lady, she still had this grudge against Betty White. Who knows what the actual story was, but I found that I just laughed. Who knows? Maybe she was a bitch to her. I have no idea. I wasn't there. Another one that somebody had on there was Betty Davis, another Betty. I remember having a weird dream about her after I watched Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. I think I find it really interesting that she's on the list because I never really thought of her as a bitch. Weird in that movie, but the odd thing to me was that she's sort of the antagonist and kind of the crazy one in that movie. But Joan Crawford to me is like a bitch. Like, come on. Beating your child with a hanger, she would make the list for bitch.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely. No, that's definitely why she's on the list.
yeah. So I don't know about Betty Davis. I don't know. I would like to hear the reasons why she's either a bitch or well, she is a badass bitch. I mean, she was accomplished in things, but definitely Joan Crawford. So I find that movie kind of funny because she's playing this crazy character when actually Joan fucking Crawford.
Right. Well, and I think that's basically why Betty Davis is on the list because she was really, I mean, that's what she did. She played these unsympathetic kind
Mhm.
of villainous characters. Um, and I don't know if she was villainous in her personal life, but based on the characters that she played, she certainly was able to tap into that. And I think that was
Mhm.
one of the things that she accomplished was sort of it was groundbreaking.
Yeah. Successful villainous characters when she probably actually was maybe a nice person.
Probably.
Whereas Joan Crawford, the opposite.
Right. She played nice characters, but she was a heinous bitch.
So since we're on the topic of actresses, and I know we had a few references to actresses on here. Was there another one there? I think I saw Katharine Hepburn on there.
You're right. There was not, yeah, and it was Katharine Hepburn.
Yeah,
Katharine Hepburn was edgy.
yeah, she was really great. I didn't look this up before we talked about this. I was just curious if you knew why she was on the list and maybe what type of bitch she was supposed to have been.
Oh, well, just based on what I know, she was kind of like didn't take anybody's shit.
Right. Headstrong and knew what she wanted.
Yeah, and like very private. She didn't let people pressure her into sharing things about her personal life that she didn't feel was any of their business. And
Right.
I mean, and like she wore pants like basically always for like way before that was common for women. And even in films, you'd see her.
Basically a power move back then.
She's the queen of the power move.
So a badass bitch, not a bitch.
No, I mean, I'm sure that lots of people perceived her as a bitch because she didn't let them do whatever they wanted. But yeah, she was not about conforming to people's expectations.
I would add Wanda Jackson as well because she was one of those. She's still around, but when she was started in the 50s, I think it was, and she was just an unapologetic. She was just. I mean, her music is when you want to feel like a badass 50s bitch rolling down the street in your car. You want to listen to Wanda Jackson because she just epitomizes all of that. Just rockabilly in general. It was sort of, I mean, in the 50s, you think about women in poodle skirts listening to Elvis and other crooners and stuff. And then along comes Wanda Jackson, and she has kind of a rough voice. And yeah, I think I'd add her to the list as well, just because, there wasn't a lot of, back then it was, mostly women were expected to act a certain way, look a certain way, and she did not.
Women in the arts for a long time and still to this day have had to, you know, sometimes if they're even allowed to participate at all, are very limited in terms of what they can do and be taken seriously at and be successful at and find a market for. And so I think that that's partly why there's such an abundance of badass bitches in the arts because
Mhm.
in order to survive and thrive and do something, whatever, maintain your integrity as an individual, sometimes you really had to fight against some pretty powerful, whatever, stereotypes and
The
even
pa-
laws, the
yeah.
patriarchy, man.
It's a crazy place to be a woman because you get shit for not doing things and shit for doing things.
Yeah,
They want you to sell your body for money. They
yeah,
want to use your image, your body, your
right.
voice.
Right.
Get
But as soon as you have any kind of agency,
as soon as you step a little too far and you sing about wet ass pussies, suddenly it's not right anymore. You're just like, oh, that's a little too far. I'm sorry. You can't
right.
you can't sing about your wet pussies.
Right. Men can sing about their genitals all day long and women's genitals as well, all day long. And that's nothing. No, people don't even notice anymore. But when a woman does it, it's like, how dare you? I know there's a pretty funny one on here. Uh, Squeaky From.
I saw that. It's interesting whoever added that. Because a lot of those women were brainwashed, for one thing,
Yeah.
by a crazy man,
Right. And the men too.
of course. But out of all of those crazy bitches, I would think that Squeaky was one of the least, the most redeemable, actually. Um,
Really?
to a point, yeah, I think she's one of the ones that were, um, not that she wasn't guilty. I mean, that's not what I'm saying. They're all
Right.
fucking crazy ass bitches. But when you watch some of her interviews, there was sort of a, like a, she stood out. She just, I don't know, still a bitch.
I don't know why she comes up so much. And then in a similar vein is Valerie Solanas, who shot
Yeah.
Andy Warhol.
You know, that's funny. And I actually really loved the movie based on that because it had a really great actress who played her too. And I can't remember her name, but she's really great. He kind of, not that he deserved to be shot. I'm not saying that, but he had a lot of, there were a lot of, well, he wasn't perfect. Let's just say.
Let's just, yeah, leave it at that. Now, there's one woman on here who I really need to highlight just because of the sheer volume of shit she got done. Whether you agree with this shit or not, whether we're talking about her methods or her philosophy, whatever. So I don't know if you've heard of Marilyn Buck.
No, I might have. I was reading about a lot of these women yesterday, a lot of the more obscure names. So I probably read about it and forgot because I have a horrible short-term memory. But remind me.
She came from a very wealthy, well, I don't know how wealthy, but respectable members of the community in Texas. And she, at the University of Texas, was part of the anti-Vietnam War movement. She was an activist and joined the Students for a Democratic Society, worked for an underground newspaper, all this stuff. So she got more and more involved in political activism. She was involved in women's liberation, worked to support Native American and Palestinian sovereignty. But anyway, she was also operated in solidarity with the Black Liberation Movement. She eventually, in 1973, was convicted of purchasing ammunition using false identification. So it would have been legal if she had not been using fake ID. Uh, in 1977, she was given furlough from prison, and rather than going back, she disappeared. So, not really breaking out of prison, but kind
Mhm.
of, they let her out with the expectation she would come back. She
Mhm.
didn't. Her list of crimes, convictions, and sentences is as follows: 1973, illegal firearms purchase, gun runner for the Black Liberation Army, received a 10-year prison sentence. 1977, escape, an interstate flight to avoid prosecution, absconded after furlough from a West Virginia federal prison. 1978, armored car robbery at the Livingston Mall worth $200,000. 1979, armored car robbery at Bamberger's in Paramus, and she was the getaway driver. They stole $105,000. In 1979 as well, she was guilty of aiding and abetting the escape and harboring a fugitive, Joanne Chesimard's jailbreak. She was the getaway driver. I believe that is Joanne Chesimard. That is Assata Shakur's birth name. In 1981, the Brinks armored car robbery and the murder of two police officers and a guard. She received a 50-year prison sentence for that. Also in 1981 was a Brinks armored car robbery in the Bronx, for which she was convicted and received another 50-year prison sentence. 1983, terrorist bombing of the US Capitol. She got a 10-year prison sentence for that. 1983, terrorist bombing of National War College, for which she got another 10-year sentence. In 1984, a terrorist bombing at the Washington Navy Yard, for which she was convicted and sentenced to 10 years. In 1984, again, there was a terrorist bombing at the South African consulate in New York City, for which she received another 10-year sentence. All of that happened from 1973 to 1985 when they finally caught her.
She was a busy gal. So
Like, who gets that much done?
yeah, so basically never, life in prison, basically.
Right, and then she died of cancer. So, you
Yeah.
know, but even while she was in prison, she continued to be an activist, and she wrote about women in prison, solitary confinement, political prisoners, and she was a poet as well.
Some of these badass bitches, or whatever we're calling them, the way that they, or where they died, is also quite interesting. Someone who I thought might have made the list but didn't was Eileen Warnos, and she,
I thought about adding her actually, and then I thought not.
yeah, I mean, she obviously she was a serial killer, but
Well, right.
but she
She shouldn't have gotten the death penalty though, because her that that the, her the conviction for which she received the death penalty, it was based on her death penalty sentence was based on another conviction that really shouldn't have been considered murder.
right, but after that happened, though, I mean she still made the decision to kill men. It's just one of these things where I guess she would be considered a badass bitch for sticking up for herself, and I certainly agree with that. I don't really know if I believe in death penalty anyway, so that is
Now,
a moot point. I don't think that she should have died in prison like that. But I also don't believe in killing people, even if they're buying sex.
right. I think
But I did think of her. Yeah, I mean, she did spring to mind. And since we're talking about people in prison, bitches in prison, I do think about her often, actually, which is really strange.
no, I mean I kind of do too. Like I don't think she was totally responsible for what she did in the sense that her experience of the world and her experience of whatever, just her, I mean, I don't think she had many positive experiences with men,
No,
just in general, from an early age.
it's
And
true. She was abused and assaulted, and she
never
became.
really felt totally safe.
I still, if she had killed a man that like a brother or something, that had just wanted to pay for a prostitute. I mean, I don't demonize that. So that is a little hard to swallow.
Oh, for sure. Neither of us would, that's not something that we would ever choose to do.
No. So I guess I just mean in that way, if we're thinking about her on our list, I guess I would she's sort of a little bit of both in my book. She stood up for herself, took it a little too far, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but yeah, she did spring to mind when we were creating this list.
Yeah, I thought of her. Nobody else that I talked to mentioned her, and so I thought I'd already added enough to the list. But it's funny that we both thought of her.
Mm.
But yeah, too many to mention. We've gone through quite a few. I mean, I think just on the historical bitches list alone, we had over 50, and we could have kept going for a long time. I think we should continue with this theme. Maybe not next episode, but we'll bring back the bitches for another episode. I mean, we didn't even cover fictional bitches.
No, and we didn't cover the Greek mythology, there's a lot of really interesting
Oh, and even
posts.
pre-Greek, I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely. So
So
we've got ancient bitches, we've got modern bitches, we've got fictional bitches, we've got male bitches.
all the way back to the very beginning of some of yours beliefs with Eve, she was kind of a bitch.
Right?
Let's just um
Yeah, way to not do what you're told.
so many avenues we could go down this way. It was interesting to see what you all considered a bitch in your books. um yeah, I think that was one of my favorite parts, was just to see all the different iterations of a bitch.
So we thank you for your contributions and we look forward to continuing. We got so much material for this. We're just gonna have to, I don't care if Dee Dee wants to or not, we're doing it. And I'm gonna be that bitch.
I will, since we're closing out our bitch discussion, I did want to bring up the quote that a lot of bitches use on Instagram, on social media, all that kind of bullshit, of well-behaved women seldom make history. It was coined by Laurel Thatcher Ulrich, and she actually was not misquoted, but it was taken out of context, and it didn't really mean to be used as an excuse to be a bitch or to rebel. It
No, she
really was,
wasn't, no, she wasn't celebrating
no,
rebellion at all.
she was just saying, it was just to indicate that well-behaved women should make history, and not to encourage y'all to like go piss on your neighbor's lawn because you're angry and you want to be a bitch. I don't know.
Right?
Um,
Stop being so fucking difficult.
Stop using this woman's famed quote to further your bitchiness. Just own it. If you're gonna be a bitch, just own it. She on the other hand finds it kind of comical. I mean, she gets emails about it. She thinks it's humorous, but it was taken out of context and used as something completely different for pop culture. So, make up your own quote and be your own. And also, you're not going to make history. Little old, I don't know who you are on Instagram with your bitch t-shirt, calling yourself a bitch, using this quote, but you're probably not going to make history anyways. So, yeah.
And you're probably using the quote wrong.
And you're probably most definitely using the quote wrong.
Everybody, please stop quoting that woman in the way that you've been quoting her. Um, and the next time you see a quote, maybe read it in context. So,
We should say goodbye until we can do this again.
yeah, yeah, let's do that.
If you want to tell us all about your craziest or most memorable dream, you can write them out, send them to us, or you can send a voice memo to our email or to Anchor directly if you have Anchor.
Yes, or you can DM us on
Yes.
Instagram. So,
And we're also just taking recommendations of anything that you want us to try. I mean, just anything. If you want us to try doing a headstand while drinking semen, I don't know why we would do
wow.
that, but just anything that you can think of, even something more elevated than that, like, literature or some piece of beautiful cinema that you think that we've never seen before because you think we're uncultured. I'm just curious if you have recommendations that we can try so that we can do our try and review. We'd be interested in that. So if you want to, again, DM us, either of us, or send us an email or whatever. We have all of our information available on our Instagram and all that other bullshit. So we will just end with this nice calmness so that you're not triggered.